Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Joining me, as always, is former Guns N' Roses manager Alan Niven. Alan, bonjour. How are you?
Ça va?
Good. I'm excited. We've got an incredible guest today, formerly from, I guess, the one and only Jethro Tull. It is Martin Barre. He's got a new album out called 50 Years of Jethro Tull, and next year, he is going to be celebrating 50 years of Aqualung with a fabulous tour, or I guess in these days, fingers crossed, with a tour, hopefully. As we say in Montreal, bonjour, Martin. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. And the great thing about my age is that every year from now on will be the 50th anniversary of something.
That's kind of funny. That's funny. In fact, a friend of mine, Chris Jericho, who's a wrestler, he was born on November 9th, the day we're recording this, and he just turned 50. So everything's it's 50s everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm going to quickly defer to Alan for the first question, just because Alan, I don't want to say grew up with you, but he was a fan from day one. And when I was talking, I said, "Hey, Alan, I got this offer to interview Martin. Should we do it? Is it some?" And he was like, "Yeah, bloody." So, Alan, I'm sure this is like a childhood fantasy. Here is the one and only Martin Barre for you. Go ahead.
Well, of course, Martin. A delight to talk with you and meet with you. And of course, it spun my brain back 50 years. And it made me remember things like underground bands and the fact that when I was an unpleasant little nipper, a little whippersnapper, I used to delight in finding bands before other people. So perhaps you'll forgive me when I'll say that my two favorite Tull records are the first two. And then once everybody else found the band, I was kind of like, well, I need to find somebody else to discover. But one of the things that is very evident to me is, and perhaps you're aware of this, are you aware of how many people that you influenced? And that if I were to describe you, if I were to describe you, I would say that you had a remarkable ability to take the blues format and idiom and also connect it to a very British folk sensibility. And you had a tremendous ability to do that.
Yeah, I follow those points. I'm not a follower, but then I'm not a leader either. So I find my musicality somewhere out there, and I'm not trying to go where nobody else has gone just to be awkward. But I don't know. I've always been that way. I sort of followed my own nose and ended up somewhere, usually unknown territory. But I agree with you. The early days were exciting. That lots of bands, or every night of the week you go and see a band. And funnily enough, you said after a couple of years you'd had enough, looking for fresh blood. But that was like John Peel. He was another one of those guys who was really looking for unusual music, and he was a big supporter of Tull until we made it. And he didn't want to know, because he only wanted underground bands. He didn't want rock stars. Yeah, we were out of there.
Yeah, it's for those listening who don't know who John Peel is. He was a DJ in the United Kingdom who very, very much wanted to be at the very front of the very largest or the best wave in front of everybody else. He wanted to discover people all the time. But that must have been an extraordinary moment, being brought into Tull. Was it intimidating?
Yeah. Oh, it was.
Or did it feel good?
Well, both, because Tull in '68 were the sort of emerging band in the English rock scene, for want of a better expression, and everybody was in awe of them. That they were just different, and particularly from a guitar playing point of view, Mick Abrams was one of the best players around, and when he left, everybody wanted his job, including me. But I met Ian because of my flute playing. So I was playing blues flute at the same time, and I knew about him and he knew about me because we were the only two guys doing it in the UK. And we played the Van Dyke Club funny enough, in Plymouth, and that's where we met. And then sort of 3 months later, Mick quit the band, and I sort of jumped in and eventually got the gig.
That's a good gig.
You got a call.
Let me just ask you real quick, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we know what happened in 2012, and the band, you and Ian, you went your own ways. But when he comes out earlier this year and tells Dan Rather in the States that he's got an incurable lung disease and things aren't looking so, do you sort of just look at that and go, all right, we've had our fights, but let's just say one last thing. Let's get back on the phone. Let's do one last show. Let's do one last. Does it change anything of the last 8 years, or do you just sort of go, hey, I wish him well, but I'm still done with him? How does that change stuff?
Well, did you get the rest of the story? You got half the story.
Right.
He announced he had this terrible disease.
Right.
And then a few days later, he retracted it because he hasn't got a terrible disease.
COPD.
He's just got a problem with his throat and singing, which I think we've known for a long time. And God bless him, he's a great flute player, but very sadly, what was a great voice has now sort of deteriorated, as happens to a lot of people, especially at that age. So, no, I think Ian just made a big mistake. Well, I don't know why he said he was dying. But before I had a chance to get on the phone and say, let's do one more concert, he'd retracted it and embarrassingly said, no, I'm okay. I'll be around for a bit.
Yeah.
So, Martin, I got to ask you, with your folk sensibilities, have you spent time with, for example, the Fairports?
No.
Did you know the Pentangle guys? Let me throw a couple of names at you. Renborn, Yanch. Are these guys that you've played with?
Yeah. I know all of them very, 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 very well. Well, I do this project in Europe called Excalibur, which is a sort of crazy rock opera with a 60-piece orchestra, Irish dancers, lots of rock star guests, and Fairport are the sort of focal band. So,
awesome.
so it's a great gig. I mean, it's just so much fun. So French.
You know what my follow-up question is going to be, is how many people are aware of your middle name? Were you really christened that?
Oh, yeah.
Lancelot?
I mean, I've always had it. I didn't advertise it, but Ian thought it was quirky, and as soon as he knew of it, he used it to my annoyance at first. But now, it's just my name, and it's my son's name. It's my dad's name, or it was my dad's name.
Wow!
It's a family name, and our family go back to Paris because my granddad was French and was a violinist in an orchestra. So it's the French side of the family is important.
Well, no wonder you're doing a thing called Excalibur.
Yeah, well, it's a French composer.
With a French composer.
He's very, very French. Lots of kisses and hugs, and it's all very emotional. But it's but the Jackie McShea and Jerry Conway. I mean, I know all of those people so well, and I met John Renborn. All of them, and not because we were of that genre at the time, but they're just nice people on the road and got on well. Dave Pegg joined the band at some point, later down the line, and he brought all those influences into the music.
So you must have played their Cropperty festival.
I played it a few times.
Yeah, I would figure.
A few times.
Yeah. Let me just quickly ask you about the new album that celebrates 50 years of Jethro Tull. Talk to me a little bit about putting together that set list, and sort of how do you sort of decide which ones go in and which ones speak to the fans most? How was sort of the album put together?
Well, in 2011, Ian finished with Jethro Tull, so I sort of started from zero, and I gave it a lot of thought, and slowly built up my band, and I started talking to the fans, listening, talking, figuring out what they liked, what they didn't like, what they missed and they hadn't heard for years. So I put a very tight and meaningful historical set together with my own music and Tull's music, and so a lot of it from that line of thought, and they're just songs from the earlier albums, which are much more guitar riffy. They're all sort of centered around the guitar more than anything, so it suits me to do those, and they're great songs. We change them a bit, we update them, we make them fresh and more powerful, and I've got a great band and a great drummer. The drummer's like a rock and roll animal, and he just makes everything come alive. So it's an easy choice. There's so much to choose, such a huge catalogue. So part of it is what I knew worked on stage, some of the things I knew fans really wanted to hear, and then the rest is just songs that are my favourites.
Just before we got on the call today, I was speaking with Joe Bonamassa, not an interview, but the guitarist, and I said, "Hey, Martin's going to call me in 15 minutes," and he was like, "Oh, he is one of my favorites. Please tell him hello and tell him how much he has meant to me." What does that mean to you when not only just a fan, but somebody of Joe's pedigree says, "This guy, Martin, is one of the best"? How does that affect you?
It doesn't affect me musically, because I'll never have such a high opinion of myself, which is why every day I get in the studio and practice. But I know Joe from when he was Tull's support band, and every night on this long US tour, I got up on stage with him and played New Day Yesterday. So we became friends, and I knew then he was a great player, and he just was going to get better and better. I'm really happy for him. He's worked really hard at what he does. He's a true gigging, touring musician. He works his balls off, and you can hear it in his music. He's really found a place in guitar music that has reached the pinnacle. He's made it his, and that's not easy to do.
It really
he has a tremendous feel in his playing.
Yeah,
and
note placement, melody. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and that's
well, the great guitar players, are great rhythm players, like Jeff Beck. Is such a great rhythm player, and if you analyse his playing, it's so precise. No matter how many notes he plays, that they're just exactly in the right place. Richie Blackmore's another great timekeeper, but it's where your right hand is the drums. You're a sort of self-contained entity where the rhythm's built in, and like all the great blues players, Stevie Ray, Albert King, Freddie King, B.B. King, it was all the feel of where to put these notes in the bar, and it's not easy. There might be a pentatonic blues solo, but it's so precise. And you can't learn it, you can't be taught it. It's a combination of all that and having the feel and understanding this music. And somebody like Joe's really worked hard at getting inside it.
Who really lit a fire for you listening to? I get a sense, Martin, that you might have been exposed to some jazz guitarists at an early age. Is that true?
Well, my dad, who wanted to be a clarinetist, when I started playing, he gave me all his jazz vinyl collection that load Barney Kessel, Jimmy Smith, Wes Montgomery, Kenny Burrell, but essentially I wanted to be a rock and roll guitar player. I was 14 years old, coming on 15. I didn't want to play jazz, so I sort of ignored it. But Frank Wes was on one of those albums, and I loved the flute playing. So within a year, I bought a flute, and I kept my flute playing going all the way through. But I can't play jazz. I don't particularly want to play jazz, but I admire it, and I love the feel, and I love the freedom, the improvisation, so advanced. Just the way instruments react to each other, and the intimacy between the people in the band. It's that there's a lot to be learned from it, but there's a lot to be learned from classical music, in the harmony, in the dynamics, in the melody. So I love classical music as well, and I'll never be able to play it, but I love to hear it, and all these things that they inspire me, even though I don't want to play them. I think you can just take in all these styles, and maybe a bit rubs off, but essentially it just inspires you to find your own way forward in music.
I want to quickly ask about the Aqualung 50th anniversary tour, which is going to be in 2021. Again, let's hope. We're hoping, and we hope it gets to North America. Just quickly, looking back on the 50 years since it's been released, you've had it, I don't want to say touched up, but you've had it remixed by Steven Wilson. Magazine after magazine has declared it, top 10, top 100, top 2, album of a lifetime. What was that album for you? And when you look back on 50 years, do you think, oh man, there's so many things we should have fixed on it? Or are you just like, nope, that's a masterpiece, and a masterpiece is How do you look back 50 years on Aqualung?
It's a time in history, and it's like black and white movies. And I've been, in lockdown, they've been showing some sort of old Grace Kelly and Frank Sinatra, Gene Kelly, some of these old black and white movies, and they've had elements of them are incredible at the dancing, but the quality of the filming and the quality of some of the acting is really awful. But it's a time capsule, and you can't change it. You don't want to colour the movie. You don't want to dub over the acting. It was a piece of art in a one particular time, and has to stay there. So certainly there's warts on everything, but they don't need fixing, because it's what made the early 70s that way. It was naive. People were learning how to play, learning how to record and play better, get better tones on their instruments, play in tune a bit better. I mean, it was a time of discovery. So it's a time capsule, and I look back on it as that. So I'm proud that I was there and was able to partake in the early 70s and the late 60s. But essentially, I don't. I'm not sort of sitting on the glory of it, because I just think we've all moved on, and we had to, and we still are. But I have great loyalty to the history of the band, and I feel like I'm flying some sort of flag to keep that music alive and take it forward.
Oh, absolutely,
Martin. I'm going to slightly disagree with you, if I may be so bold, and I'll tell you why. Okay. Being a little bit of an old dog myself now, I definitely have had it deeply set in my bones that good playing or inspired playing is not a time capsule. It's actually timeless. And I think your playing on Aqualung qualifies as being timeless, and that it speaks now as well as it spoke the day you played it.
Well, that's very, very, very nice of you to say so.
No,
it's not my place to have an opinion like that, but that's a very nice thing to say. Thank you very much. But I mean, I think that about Hendrix. You know, I can listen to Purple Haze, and knowing even now as we do that it was a demo. It wasn't even the real thing, and it's phenomenal. You know, it's perfect, and it is forever. All of his music is just so timeless. But I can quantize that because I'm outside of it. I'm just another punter, another music listener, and I can make a sort of valid opinion. But yeah, so I know it exists, and the same with the Stones music and the Beatles and every blues artist. It's all Neil Young. I mean, I could go on and on about things that I love, and they are from 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, and they're still great. I listen to them now, but the exact version, and they're just still wonderful.
Oh, they really are. I want to ask you one thing coming from the Metallica fan perspective. We all know about this Crest of a Knave. It's a great album, and of course, Metallica doesn't win the best heavy metal album, but has the controversy, so-called controversy, overshadowed the fact that you actually had a great album? And, you know, we've all heard Lars Ulrich talk about it, and we've heard, Kirk Hammett talk about it, but how do you look back on this? Because at the end of the day, you had a great album. How do you sort of see the whole situation?
Well, it wasn't a controversy in my household. Let's put it that way. And I'm looking at my Grammy right now. It's up on the top shelf in my studio.
Please take a picture and send it over. But go ahead.
Well, it's there so that people who come here to work for me look at it and it pisses them off. And I'm like, yep, that's a Grammy. It's mine, and I earned it. I don't say it, but I think it.
You definitely earned it, Martin. You earned it, and I'll tell you something else that you may not be aware of. But I had 2 nominations at the same time in the same category.
Oh wow!
Oh, yeah. Was Guns N' Roses up that year too?
And Great White, they were both up that year.
For best hard rock metal thing of '89.
Yep.
Oh, yep. So Martin beat you too. That's awesome.
Oh, he beat me like a rented mule.
Yeah. But we're all winners. But I mean, I wish but my one regret is I wasn't there, and the record company said you're not going to win it. We got nominated, and I'm over the moon. I go, wow, I've got a bit of paper that says I'm nominated, but that was the end of it, because the record company say that you're definitely not going to win. It's Metallica's award. Everybody's saying it. They're playing there. They're going to play live. All their fans are there. We're not going to fly you out for it. And so I'm at home, and it's midnight, about to go to bed, and I get a phone call saying, "Oh, yeah, you've won a Grammy." I'm like, oh. It was just, but we come across as being rude because we weren't there to receive it, and that's the bad thing. But the only negative thing about it is that, and I would have loved the occasion, and if I ever get a chance of doing something like that again, I don't know.
Just go for posterity. No, but the one thing that I find regretful in the controversy, whether or not Metallica deserved to, that's a whole other debate, but fans have talked about it as if Jethro Tull didn't deserve it and didn't deserve it. Like, the album wasn't good enough. And it's like, no, the album has its merits. It's a good album. It's a strong album. Jumpstart, Steel Monkey, all, so yes, talk about whether Metallica deserves to win. Go ahead. But don't say Jethro Tull's album is no good, and that's what bothers me, is that for some reason, because you won, Anyway, but that must have been a sweet moment for you.
Yeah,
Martin, if it makes you feel any better, the same night I was not there either, and
right.
I made sure that I was at a gig completely on the other side of the country, but that had more to do with my sense of, I'm not sure that I believe in award shows. I don't think it's right to creativity. So I wasn't there either, Martin.
Yeah. Well, I saw, Tull always turn their back on that sort of thing. But you know what? I'm very, very happy that I got it. And, everybody likes a pat on the back. They might shrug it off or just, pretend that it's not cool. But we're all human, and we all like to be told we've done a good job. And here's a little present. And you go, even deep down, you're smiling.
It's a great job, and quite frankly, the best part would have been if Jethro Tull had invited Metallica to open for them on the next North American tour. I thought that would have been hilarious.
Yeah, that would have been brilliant.
It would have been perfect.
I'd have done it without a doubt.
Well, hey, when the 50th anniversary comes up in 2026 or something, maybe you can convince the Metallica boys to come up with you and do something, or 2027. Anyway, it's down the road, but I know we're going to run out of time. Alan, a couple more questions, and then I guess we're going to have to go. So, Alan, up to you.
Is the tour is coming to America, right, Martin? You're going to get over here and tour it here?
Well, we've got a backlog. I think we've got about 4 US tours that we haven't done, and they keep being put back. 21, and the last conversation I had with the people over there in America are talking about 22. The fact that we don't think theatre gigs, the sort of large theatre shows that we do, will be viable until 2022, maybe earlier. But and we're just stockpiling all these tours. We've got one for Australia, one for South America. We've got a huge European tour, a UK tour, Italy. It's crazy, but and we're out of work, and it's a disaster. But at some point, when it starts again, I'm going to be working 365 days that year, and that's going to be amazing.
It's going to be terrific. And I'll finish with this just real quick. We are doing Aqualung 50th. Thick as a Brick comes up in 2022. Do you want to start to do those where you start celebrating the album's 50th anniversaries? Because I don't know if you want to do every album, but certainly Aqualung and Thick as a Brick are both deserving of that kind of treatment.
Yeah, well, I think the answer is probably not, because I've got a lot of my own solo albums, and they're sort of taking second place at the moment, and I want to get back on the road playing a lot of that music. So when we do the Aqualung tour, the first set will be all my music, and the second set will just be the whole of the Aqualung album. But I don't know. The jury's out, taking it further down the line, because Thick as a Brick, we do about 20 minutes from it, and it's great. We do the best 20 minutes of music, and we do it on stage. We have been doing it. But to do the whole album, I'm
maybe not
too sure about that.
Is it still, because you said you're doing the first half with your own music? Is it still important for you to be creative and make new music? Because let's be honest, you could put on the marquee, Martin Barre does Aqualung, blah blah blah. Martin Barre Thick as a Brick. He does, you could put that there. It'll sell out, and everybody will have a good time. Is it still important though for you to say, yeah, that's nice, fans, but I need to be Martin first?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And the first 5 years of my band, I never played Aqualung on stage, because it's the cheap shot. I don't want to be obvious and predictable, and
but many bands do, right?
To the audience. Yeah. So my music, I love writing, and I've got another album sort of in preparation for next year. But I've got a DVD coming out in a couple of weeks. I've got this album that we're promoting, and I'm lucky to have two separate things that are really important to me, and I can combine them. I can mix and match, and it works because essentially, the common thread is the guitar playing, because I have to think that whatever's in Tull and whatever's in my music is married by the common ground that's me. So musically it blends together, and the fans like it. But yeah, my music in my mind comes first.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. And as we say in Montreal, merci. But I'll just let Alan say your last words, and thank you, Martin. Absolute pleasure today.
Oh, thank you, Alan.
Martin, a pleasure talking with you. And I'm a great believer in the fact that if you stay active and creative, it helps you in the perception that the spirit does not age. And go practice.
Yeah, I'll drink a nice glass of Chardonnay to that one. I totally agree with you.
There you go. Thank you, gentlemen.
Excellent.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you. And there we go. Perfect.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you.
Alan.
Cheers.